Welcome to Fun and Fundraising, everybody, the podcast where we talk with people behind top nonprofit galas and signature fundraising events to showcase how they positively transform their communities. I'm your host, Rob Giardinelli, and today I'm really excited to have a special guest on. So we have Kit Sars, and she is the president and CEO of Klyde Warren Park. And they have a wonderful outdoor fundraiser in this beautiful downtown space I can't wait to talk about called Party in the Park. And it really is one of the top outdoor events in Texas, and certainly also one of the top nonprofit events in Dallas. So we're really excited to chat about this great event today. And with that, Kit, welcome, and we're so thrilled to have you here.
Thank you for your interest. Delighted to be here.
Absolutely. So and share what the mission of Klyde Warren Park is.
Really, Klyde Warren Park is the mission of it is to serve as Dallas's town square. We really want to pull people together from every different neighborhood across the city. In particular, people who may look different from each other, vote different from each other, worship differently from each other, but all want to be together to really focus on what we have in common as a community. So we have, for example, the city's Independence Day event, where everyone comes together to watch fireworks. We light the mayor's Christmas tree each December, and so it's a chance for people to really celebrate these things together. And the fun thing about it is now that we're about 13 years old, is the next generation is coming. So people who grew up coming here are starting to bring their children. So it's really been satisfying to watch.
Well, and I love hearing, that this is kind of a newer, it's a newer organization. So could you share a little bit about kind of the history of the park and kind of how, why it was conceived and how it's really kind of helped contribute to the vibrancy of downtown Dallas today?
Sure. So, before Clyde Warren Park was built, when everyone was going to work in their offices every day, downtown Dallas really started being choked off from uptown Dallas. They were separated by Woodall Rogers Freeway and the portion that Clyde Warren Park is now on top of, which is a recessed portion between uptown and downtown. And uptown was starting to have businesses and residences and a lot of young people moving in from all around the country. And downtown was stuck with this 5 o'clock mass exodus every day where people would just depart. And there were probably only a few thousand people who lived down there. So the idea was to create what's called a deck park and put something over this basically gash through Dallas. And then it was, okay, so if it becomes a park, what kind of park is it? Because a lot of people don't know this, but Dallas does have a ton of parks. It has a lot of trails, a lot of parks, but this is different. This was set up intentionally from the beginning as a 501c3 nonprofit, so almost like a KERA, a PBS. So that we raise money from individuals and foundations and corporations to put on free programming for the community. So there was an agreement with the city early on that this would be privately managed, privately run, but it was a city park. So everything we have in Clyde Warren Park is free. We have about 1,300 programs a year. It can be anything from fitness classes to story time reading to live music. And the goal of it was and based on multiple different places that were visited, but was to create some place where people were drawn to. So it wasn't just a green space, which was important, but a gathering place. And again, Dallas has a lot of really interesting subcomponents in different neighborhoods, but didn't have a Times Square, didn't have a French Quarter, frankly, didn't have a Pacific Ocean. There was no central gathering place. And what Clyde Warren Park has done now with all the programming and really being in between uptown and downtown is just pull people together from everywhere. And now downtown has thrived and has, tens of thousands of residents and a lot more going on. And in fact, downtown has now created several parks, which are starting to have programming, which truly is the secret sauce of Clyde Warren Park.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And you gave such a great outline to the organization. Talk about how you initially got involved with Clyde Warren Park.
So I'm a native Dallasite, and I had heard about the project before the opening. And I actually knew that one of the founders, a guy named Jody Grant, who also founded Texas Capital Bank. And he was in the middle of really building the park at the time and was looking to put on the grand opening. And I had my own business at the time with a business partner, Tony Fay, and he and I were doing large scale projects for North Texas, PR and marketing, event planning, fundraising to really launch these big projects. It was on the heels of Cowboy Stadium being built, and all of a sudden, Dallas and North Texas getting a lot of events. And so we were hired by Jody Grant and his wife Sheila, who is also one of the co-founders of the park, to put on the very, the grand opening of Klyde Warren Park in October 13 years ago. And so we raised the money for it. We really taught the community how to use it. It was a multi-day event. It wasn't just a seated dinner in the park. It was also like there was a movie night, and Owen Wilson, who's a native Dallasite, came and spoke about his movie. And then we had, music and all the different kind of programming. And we were trying, it was educational, to try to teach Dallas, what did this programming thing mean? And then I went back to after that, after we kicked it off, I had other clients. And so I finished up my work with them. And then a few years later, we reconnected. I'd always been keeping my eye on the park, and it had always held a special place in my heart because I saw that it was doing great things. And it just worked out from a timing perspective for me to accept the position of president and CEO at that time. And so I've been here now 7 years this month.
Wow. So that I love that, you always kept it on your radar. And I think that's a good thing for, especially for anyone that, from a development perspective that might be listening, that, you always want to be paying attention to kind of a pipeline of sorts to where, you can find talent, or if you're interested, there are always going to be very talented people like Kit who want to work and partner with, organizations like this. And I think it's really cool that you said that. And the thing that, you can tell that you really have a passion for public spaces and the public square and green spaces. Where does that passion come from for you?
I don't know, because being from Dallas, I certainly wasn't used to green spaces, and it still actually makes me laugh that we have people coming not only from all around the country but all around the world coming to look at our little, frankly, postage stamp of a park, which is just a little over 5 acres total. I mean, we had people from Tokyo come 2 months ago, and they were looking at our programming and things like that. So, and there are more than 70 parks like Klyde Warren Park, these deck parks being built over recessed portions of highways and trying to connect neighborhoods back together, being built around the country. So it's really an exciting kind of a greening up time for the country, which is great. And there's also there's a program that people pseudo call Rails to Trails, which is taking, old railroad tracks and turning them into trails. So it's a great, I mean, one of the frankly silver linings of COVID, I think, was a desire to be outside. People knew they weren't going to get sick as much outside. During COVID, I actually did some research to try to figure out how Klyde Warren Park could participate with COVID going on. Because initially the city asked us to be a testing ground, and I politely declined because you could be tested in a parking lot. We really wanted well people to come here. And one of the things I read was about the Spanish flu. And apparently, on the tail end of the Spanish flu, when they also realized, before antibiotics and everything, that being outside, people were getting it less. On the heel of it, the silver lining with that is that some of the cities around the US, which have the most beautiful promenades and outdoor spaces, were all built at that point in time. So just the country's kind of renewed love of outside, I think, has caught on. And thus all the people who are coming to visit us. So maybe I got caught up in that. I don't know. But as people are really embracing being outside, it's something that I take personal pride in as a native Dallas girl, that people are coming to check out what we're doing, and that we're a role model for so many other places, and how we're tackling it.
What a fantastic answer. And I love a couple of things of that. One is how you're using it, to kind of stitch together the community from older infrastructure. And two, but I love the reminder of, because I don't think we think of that enough, that after the last pandemic, the Spanish flu, 100 plus years ago, kind of a similar thing happened. And I appreciate kind of the continuity and kind of the through line of after you're stuck indoors for a while, people want to be outside and take full advantage of that. And you were talking earlier about, some of the founders and how you initially got involved. And one thing that I have always been very, very impressed by your organization is you really have a rock star board of directors with really, really prominent people throughout Dallas. So talk about the importance of having an active and engaged board to one, create a successful organization, but two, we can then segue it into, talking about a successful event like Party in the Park.
Well, and I think your word create really hits the nail on the head because being just 13 years old, we're still very much of a startup. And I will definitely, say that the groups that have, I feel, been the most successful early on without petering out have been those who have had honestly the same group of volunteers with them potentially for decades to really make sure that it is cemented and becomes part of the it grabs hold of the community and stays for a while. And there are several other examples around Dallas. St. Philip's School with Terry Flowers, I think, is one of them. And this group that we have, to your point, Jody and Sheila Grant, John Zog, who was early involved with the park, and from has worked with the Crescent, which is the hotel nearby and the office complex nearby, and so he really knew this uptown office area. Nancy Best, who recently donated with her husband this beautiful Nancy Best fountain that we have in the park, which is just I call it the great democratizer of play. I mean, it's a 5,000 square foot fountain that has kids from every neighborhood running through and caretakers talking to grandparents, talking to parents. So she's still involved. Just the group who has stayed on. Rob Walters, who's been our attorney, he's head of Gibson Dunn, and he did all the pro bono legal work for us. These guys are all still involved. And so really to create, to use your word, a nonprofit, I think you have got to be fortunate enough to have people who stick with it potentially and treat it like an extra child and are with it till it's 21 and maybe can be a little bit launched, ideally till it's 25 and its prefrontal cortex or whatever has formed. That's critical. And then after that, it's nice to be able to start pulling in different people. And we've had some great folks who are who now understand the project. I think people thought they were crazy early on, right? I mean, there was nothing really to compare it to. It was kind of a unicorn. And so now that it's been as successful as it is, we have a lot of later adopters, and that really allows us to bring in some fresh new blood, and to keep the program thriving.
Thank you for, kind of mentioning all those great folks that you've had and that they've still, become involved. Like, what advice would you give as a leader? Before we start talking about the event, I kind of want to dive into this with the board a little bit in making sure that you've got some folks that are there longer term, but you're also infusing some newer people just to make sure you're keeping the project and what you're doing fresh and constantly moving forward.
Well, it's a constant balance, and especially a city like Dallas, like many of the Texas cities, the people are changing, right? Not only the people who use the park, but the people who are moving here and who want to get involved philanthropically. So just staying connected, really partnering with other nonprofits. We love to pull every different nonprofit together to either come do something in the park or to work with us. I think we're stronger together. So I think being open to that, sharing information, creating networks with the other groups that are similar to yours, or maybe in the same neighborhood as yours, or have some kind of commonality. Because I think that everyone has different ideas and connections, and we're not competing against each other. I mean, there's plenty to get people involved with in a place like Dallas. And so I think leaning on each other and just learning about what's new and what people might be interested in is the best way for nonprofits to exist these days.
I completely agree, and I'm glad you brought up the collaboration piece. And like you said at the beginning of the show, a park, at its best brings communities together. Is there a particular project or nonprofit that you're working with that you're particularly proud of?
Well, we really work with nonprofits all the time. Our mission, as I said, is to pull all these groups together. So we feel like it's very much it's very core to our mission to let the nonprofits who are doing incredible work in our community leverage off of we have to offer, which is frankly a lot of visibility. We're in the core, so we're a little bit under a microscope. We're fortunate to have an e-newsletter we send out that has, that goes out to like 70, 80,000 people and has a really, really high open rate, like double the number that's considered high. And so we like to, and then our social media, we have a lot of people. So we like to pull these nonprofits in to to be able to present one of their programs kind of in the park. For us, it's programming, right? It's something free for visitors to experience, and for them, it really helps lift what they're doing. So, just this past month in May, we were working with the Momentous Institute, which puts on the Byron Nelson, and we were celebrating Mental Health Awareness Month with their new Squeeze the Lemon campaign. We work a lot with Girl Scouts. We just had the Girl Scout. There's like a Girl Scout STEM truck where they come and they work with the kids who come to the park to explore engineering and science and all that. Being surrounded by the Dallas Arts District, we've got the Perot Museum and the Nasher, and then the performing arts groups. We work a lot, with the symphony. We also have Visit Dallas, which is the Convention and Visitors Bureau for Dallas. They now have a kiosk that just opened in Klyde Warren Park within this past year, and they're providing through a busking program they have, which are singer performers kind of setting up on street corners and stuff. They're basically providing a free busking for about 80 performers throughout the course of this year in Klyde Warren Park. So that's an opportunity for these musicians to get some exposure, and it pulls people in the park. So we just look for any win-win opportunity we can get.
I'm glad that you brought up the range of different types of nonprofit opportunities that there are, and that you also leverage your email list, which is a really critical piece to kind of get the word out of how you support these other nonprofits. And, the wider your exposure is, the more likely it is that you can have a successful fundraising event. And, Party in the Park is certainly one of those. And I'd love for you to share how you, as CEO, use that event to create better connections and relationships with both current donors and then as well as potential and new donors who may not be as familiar with the park.
Well, Dallas is fortunate to have a very philanthropic group of people, and they love combining their philanthropy with fun. To the name of your podcast, which is so perfect. And to have an event that is a beautiful seated dinner in Klyde Warren Park with 100 tables and about 1,000 people sitting outside under the stars, looking at all the buildings around us all lit up. It's really a night like no other in Dallas, again, because we're outside. And so it's the chance to pull in people who probably aren't in the park on a regular basis. Let's face it, we're maybe a little bit out of their neighborhood, or like I said, since we're in the central business district, some people may work or may not, or may have a home office, or may work in different parts of Dallas. So it's really a chance to let the park be the star for that night and let people experience what they know is happening. And we try to do a little bit of everything. We have this incredible fountain show. We have live music. But it's just a chance to showcase what it's like and the magic of what this place is like at least once a year to people who we don't get to see all the time.
That's fantastic. And what I really love about that too is, I kind of thought about, the folks that may not go in the park all the time, but they may go into Menasher. They may go into the
Right.
performing arts centers. They may go to DMA. They may go to any one of these other things around it.
And they
And
drive by it and they tell me every time I talk to them, they're like, oh my gosh, we drive by and you all are busy all the time.
absolutely. And it's just good to see that there's another way that those folks can utilize downtown. It just brings them more involved with the community and the core of Dallas as it grows and evolves and changes. So, I'd love for you to share, how do you think Klyde Warren Park is helping the city of Dallas evolve? Because there's a way that you all are doing this that is very forward thinking.
I think just, well, first of all, the physical structure of it, right, is critical because it does create a there that didn't used to exist. But as I said earlier, I really think the for free programming is the secret sauce to the park because we have the opportunity to present all different types of cultural festivals. We have the opportunity to do, 5Ks and races and things. We have, like I said, fitness classes. We have about 20 different food trucks that offer all different types of cuisine. There's just so many different types of things to do that I think it really gives people maybe who are moving here a chance to go somewhere and feel like they're represented somehow and that they've found a little bit of a home and that they can identify with something here. That's really what we try to be to everybody. I know that they say you can't be everything for everybody, but if I could go back and revise what I told you earlier about our mission, that really is our mission. It's just to try to be as reflective of the community as we can be, really be the type of place where everyone can find a home and be exposed to all these different cultures and just have everything open and happy and friendly year round. So I think that that's making a difference in Dallas because, like I said, we haven't had that many gathering places like that where people can come and share and just feel good with each other and commune.
Absolutely. And I what I liked about those examples were it's for everybody, but not every single event has to be for everybody. If you like
Exactly.
food, you can go and you work downtown, you can go and have lunch at food trucks during the week. If you want to hear music, you can go do that. So there's different touch points that people can utilize and go there. And I really love that aspect of it. And I want to go back to the outside, piece because you were talking about how it really is unlike any other thing to just kind of be right in the middle of the downtown and literally have a dinner under the stars. I mean, it's really kind of one of those cool things. And if you've never done it, do it because it's really, really cool. Talk about how you leverage the space to really create a great experience at the gala that compels donors to give more, that brings people's energy up so that you've got 1,000 people that really want to be there and have fun.
The way we structure it is that we start off, the park is split in two, basically. Olive Street runs between the two parts of the park, not quite halves, but I would say maybe kind of 40% and 60%. So we start off our event with a reception over on our east lawn, which has the beautiful Nancy Best fountain that I mentioned. We have, one of those really large chess sets. We have the Visit Dallas kiosk. We have ping pong and all sorts of different things set up. So people start off there, they're dropped off. They enjoy about an hour over there, so they see that component. And then we cross the street and they come and they experience the crossing the street, which is what people do, 365 days a year when they're going through the different parts of the park. They walk past the stage and they go to, as I said, this beautiful seated dinner. And so they pass by the Mi Casino restaurant that is in the park. They see the outdoor seating there. They pass by the little walk-up kiosk that Mi Casino owns that people playing in our fountains can go up and grab food from. So they see elements of the park as they walk back to their tables. They see our reading and games room where we have all the periodicals and things set up and surrounded by bistro chairs and tables. So they really do take it in as they are walking toward their table. So we have them honestly walk really from one end of the park to the other to experience it while they're with us for the night. And I think it really showcases well. And the lawn, we take extra care of the lawn right before that event, so they get to see it in all its greenest. And it's usually a very beautiful night.
Absolutely. And I do have a question, and this may be a little nitty-gritty, but I'm kind of fascinated for your answer. What is the secret to successfully move? And by move, I mean corral, because we're in Texas. 1,000 people kind of across the street and from one space to another. What advice would you give to an organization that, is looking to do kind of a progressive event where it goes kind of from one space to the next?
That is such a good question because people do not like to move from one place to the next. I have found cutting off alcohol helps a lot. I wish we could, if I could say I'd start making the lights go up and down, that's what I would do if I had an indoor event because that'll really get people to leave. That kills a vibe, but we can't do that obviously because we're out in kind of the beautiful twilight at that point. But really, we just stop bar service, we stop all music. I have, people lined up to gently herd everybody, and then they just start getting everybody to go, and we only make them move that one time. And I think by then they're hungry, So that helps a little bit too. But getting them to stop talking once they get over to their seats to so we can make remarks, that's one that I had mastered when I was doing events in ballrooms and indoor spaces, because you take it really dark and people don't they stop talking. It's like a cue to look at the stage. Um, if you leave it light, they're not going to stop talking. The only time you go back full lights is when you're doing an auction or something, or, if you're asking for donations during the course of the event. But we don't have that. So that's really where we have our trickiest point of the evening, which is try to get everybody stop enjoying each other's companies for a few minutes and let us welcome everybody.
That was really good advice. Cutting off the bars. It can be that simple. That's just a really simple solution. No more alcohol, time to go. So, and go get a glass of wine at the table. So,
Right.
and events, successful events exist. I always like to say it's a three-legged stool. So you've got the organization, led by you. You've got the board, which we've talked about, and you've also got the event chairs. So what's the key to establishing a great relationship so all three of those legs are simpatico so that you're really optimizing the event to the best of the organization's ability?
So there's a subcommittee of the board who works with us on parting the park each year, and then we work very closely with the event chairs, the honorary chairs. So this year we have John and Debbie Tollison as our honorary chairs, and their grown children and their spouses are our event chairs. And we've done that several times where it's been a family endeavor, which again, I think works really, really well for Klyde Warren Park because we're a multi-generational, venue and cause in the city. And so we pull in the Tollison family as well. And we just talk about who might be interested in whatever, this year. But we meet every month or two and really plan everything together and give an update on where we are financially and what we're doing for entertainment. And we have a lot of people who were very fortunate come back to this event year in, year out. I would say about 70% of them buy their table as soon as the tickets go on sale. And then the remaining 30% either eventually do, or that group might change depending on who the chairs are and who's involved with it from year to year. But we're very fortunate that we've very, very involved board members.
That's amazing. And I'm glad that you mentioned, you've got your core and you sell a good amount of them. And then that other 30% is really, it's for the discretion of the chairs. That way the chairs feel comfortable inviting their friends because they know that there's inventory of tables available. And that allows the energy to always feel fresh, even though you've got your core, you're going to have different elements coming in so that every single event feels a little bit differently. So that was such good advice. And one thing that, has been kind of a through line of what we've talked about today is music. And I know you all have, you all have a musical performer for it. But before we talk about that, what advice would you give to an organization looking to have a headline musical performer at their gala or signature fundraiser?
It, I mean, the quick answer to me is just try to figure out the ROI, the return on investment, because sometimes nonprofits invest in these really big name entertainers who are very expensive, and then you have to pay, for the production of that. Then you have to pay for, their travel, potentially their food. There's just a lot of extra costs associated with that. So I would just make sure that, you are making enough money to make that worth it. We actually have gone kind of a different direction, and we don't have a big name performer for our event each year now, and it's really helped with our net revenue. So I think I would just say, how much are you known for the party? Maybe poll people, survey the people who come each year. Are they coming because they support the cause, or are they truly coming because you have that big name entertainer?
And that's really smart. And that's probably why your retention rate is 70% is they care about the park first and the musical number second. Yes, they want to be entertained, but they're driven by the vision of the park and what your organization is doing. And, what are some things you might be able to tease to us about this year's musical performer?
So I can go ahead and tell you, who we have. It's going to be a fun night of music and dancing, which our group likes to do outside. We have a group called Staying Alive One Night of the Bee Gees. So it's a Bee Gees tribute band. The fun thing about that is it's multi-generational, and we have, all decades represented at the park. We've done different things each year. Last year we had a country band called Straight Tequila Night, and they played like 90s hits. We've had a Broadway evening one time where we had the woman who won the Tony Award for playing Cher in the Broadway show about Cher. We had the Texas tenors one year who were, a kind of a play on the three tenors. And so we really try to have different things every year, again, to showcase that Klyde Warren Park represents all different kinds of music, all different types of genres, things like that. But it should be another fun night of, another one we had that was really fun was an ABBA tribute band. So our group really does like to sing the songs they know and get out there and dance and have a good time.
Well, what I love about all those is all those are very, very, very fun, different types of things. And I've seen Stephanie J. Block perform. I actually saw her as Cher on Broadway when she won the Tony, and she was incredible. So I can see her commanding a presence, even with Broadway songs that would just really captivate the crowd. So I love that. And I also love that, this year you're doing, because when people think of Bee Gees, rightly or wrongly, they think of something like Studio 54, and people are just going to get out and they're going to dance. And that allows, people to kind of dance under the stars and really just enjoy really a magical evening and have that cap it off. I think that's just so cool.
Yeah, I mean, we've kind of, now that the party is, and it really celebrates our anniversary each year, our birthday each year, since we were founded in October, and we keep this, or in October, and we keep this event in October each year. But I really feel like it takes a little while for a annual fundraiser to find its footing, and you have to experiment in real time, and you're going to get all sorts of different opinions along the way about what it should be and what it shouldn't be. But honestly, in the same way, the general public who comes and visits the park allow us to figure out what we should be offering. Our guests at this event, the same thing happens. I mean, they love certain things, then they don't love other things, and so we've just continued to refine this event to make it what they want. There's no reason to fight against what your group wants, right? So just go with the flow, do what they want, and I think we found a successful formula, certainly for ourselves.
That's really fantastic advice. And listening to your audience is really key. And I've got a question for you. I've never asked this on the program before, but how do you discern the difference between genuine feedback versus someone who may be the peanut gallery? Because every event, if you've got 1,000 people, you're going to have one or two that are probably going to be a little louder than everybody else and may not
Yeah.
necessarily be reflective of what the other 998 guests want.
Yeah, I think that that's a great question. And we do get both. I tend to look for patterns in feedback and try to ask enough people so that I know when to weed out maybe what only affected one person or a few people versus what the general group thinks. And so I try to ask, just get enough information that if I'm going to make a change with something, I feel like I've got, I'm on solid footing.
Fantastic. And I know we're coming up on time, but I always love to end with this one question, and that is, what do all successful galas and signature fundraising events have in common?
I think it's a combination of several different things. I think that the goal of the gala is important. The purpose of the organization, making sure it's clear. That there's a kind of an authenticity to the tone of it. It's truly reflective of the organization. It's not kind of a one-off. And frankly, great execution. It all comes down to great execution. Frankly, our event comes down to great weather. It could be honestly the world's worst planned event, and if the weather was incredible, people would be very forgiving, versus it could be the best planned event, and if the weather was terrible, not so much. So I throw in the weather component for the outdoor events, but I really do think it's the communication and the execution, and then just really authentically representing the organization.
All really, really good pieces of advice. And I love, the part of there are certain things that are just intangible. And weather being one of those things that can shift the mood of the event no matter how much the other trains are running on time. So I really appreciated that answer a lot.
We do have a good backup plan. We moved the
Tell me
event
about it.
to SMU. There is an indoor practice facility for the football team called Armstrong Fieldhouse. And it's got artificial turf on the ground and it's shaped like a rectangle. So if you don't look down and see the 50-yard line and the big red Peruna, SMU's mascot in the middle, it's kind of like you're in Klyde Warren Park. And we literally just will pick up the event and move it in there if we need to. So we have a very good backup plan, which we're excited about. But again, nothing replaces, to your point, being under the stars and being in the park.
Absolutely. And I love that you brought up the contingency plan and that you've always got something in place because I know a lot of organizations with outdoor events, I've seen them scramble and it's awesome that, if it rains, you're just like, okay, there's no problem. Well, you've got to get the vendors over there, but you can just simply move it and you can kind of
Well,
plug and play for lack of a better
and to
term.
your point, we use SMU catering. They do our dinner
Ah,
in the park, so that makes it 10 times easier. So if and when we do need to move over, we've got the catering all set up.
that's amazing. And that's probably actually easier for them because it's 2 seconds away. So that is awesome. That is really, really good and sage and sound advice. And I can see why this is one of the very best events in Dallas. So, Kit, thank you so much for joining us today. This was just such a pleasure to chat with you.
You as well. Thanks so much for having me. I enjoyed it.
Absolutely. And Party in the Park, benefiting Klyde Warren Park, will be held on October 9th, 2025 at Klyde Warren Park in Dallas, Texas. For more information, please visit clydewarrenpark.org. And that will do it for this episode of Fun and Fundraising. I'm your host, Rob Giardinelli, reminding you to keep it fun, keep it interesting, and your guests will have a great time. Have a great day, everyone, and take care.